My recording is, oh, maybe it is working. I got an error. I don't know if my recording is working. Okay, so I'm going to start with a presentation piece to give some background information on what is SQL ICE and what kinds of things you can do with it, and then explain a little bit about the examples that you're going to see so that they make more sense when we get to them. Then we're going to move on to the live demo. And during the demo, you will be able to ask questions on the specific examples that I give, and then we can have an open discussion and Q&A at the end if there are still open questions. So what is SQL ICE? SQL ICE is a lot of things, and this is a partial list. It doesn't encompass everything it can do. It's really quite powerful, but it is a comprehensive tool to manage databases. You can manage all of your databases and all of your queries for those databases in one place, in one tool. And so that's a convenient way of using SQL ICE. You can manage your database maintenance with SQL ICE. You can manage your scheduled reports. But in addition to that kind of stuff, like I mentioned, it's got some pretty powerful uses. It's also an integration tool. You can use web services to integrate applications through database tables. And then it's also an application development tool. You can literally create and deploy complete web-based applications, all using only the SQL that you already know. And then there's a little caveat to that. There's a smidgen of HTML that you're going to see for some of the queries, the examples I'm going to go through today that are specifically focused on Drupal do not use much HTML, but if you're doing application development with SQL ICE, then you would use some to make your screens formatting look nice. So what can I do with SQL ICE? You can publish reports on the web in minutes. You can extract data from databases to CSV files for spreadsheet analysis and to make that available to users or for analysis that you want to do. For legacy applications that you don't have an easy way to access, you can enter and update data in those legacy databases. You can manage your scheduled database maintenance queries. And I mentioned this on the last slide. You can enable web service integration for new and legacy applications. You can integrate applications by converting data to XML, and you can expose that as a web service. And like I also mentioned, you can build complete internet applications with full CRUD capabilities. And like I already said, it's all using the SQL that you already know. So before I get to the example queries that I've got set up for today's demo, I want to explain how they work. These are all SQL queries that you're going to see. So it's going to be SQL commands that you're going to see. Our examples for our local databases use an Apache Derby database, and so you're going to see Derby syntax in the SQL for those. But for the Drupal queries, most of what you're going to see today are Drupal queries. That uses a MySQL database. But there's a couple of examples where I'm going to show you how you can extract data from Drupal and get a local copy of that so that you could maybe make that available to users, or you can do analysis or whatever it is that you want. And so for those local databases, those that you're going to see that SQL ICE uses is Derby. And then in your environment, you would create connections to your various internal databases, and you'd use the syntax appropriate for those. So like I said, the Drupal ones are a MySQL database. And then I don't think we actually in these examples are going to be using the header tags or link tags or table tags, but those are available to you. So if you know basic HTML,
we use text area.
you can use, yeah, we do use, that's right. We do, there's a couple where we have some formatting to make fields look nice on the screen, and so we're using text area for formatting on that. So there is one that you'll see. So I'm going to switch over to the live demo now and show how you can use SQL ICE to access your Drupal data. So before we get started, I want to mention that the examples I'm going to show you today, you will not be able to recreate these or create connection to your Drupal database with our demo site. We have a demo site for SQL ICE that have some examples and a sample application, and you can merely look at the SQL and you can run the examples that we have, but you can't create your own, you can't modify, you can't create your own connection. So in order to do the kinds of things that I'm going to show you today, you're going to need to download SQL ICE from our website, and that is available. All you have to do is register with us, and registration is merely, we just want your name. You can download without registration now? Okay, so yeah, you can, anyone's free to download SQL ICE and use it for any legal purpose, both personal and commercial, but you can't bundle SQL ICE and try to resell it with some of your own software, that kind of thing, but to run it in a commercial environment, you know, at your business, that is perfectly free and legal use of SQL ICE. And we are going to provide the queries that I'm going to show you today. We're going to zip them up and provide them to you to download, so that if you want to recreate them, connecting to your Drupal database, then you'll have, I think, a real nice starting point that you can then use to copy and create your own. You can modify and make things, do the kinds of things you want to do. So I want to explain a little bit about the user interface before I get into any example queries, so that you understand what it is that I'm showing you. So when you log in, you get to this, you go straight to the queries tab, and the first thing I want to, what I want to show you about this is this screen here is the result of a query, a SQL query. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but I just want to show you, if I click query, you're going to see that that display that we saw is the result of this SQL query right here. And what we're doing here is, you've got a way, I have put an attribute on all of my Drupal queries I'm going to show you today of Drupal. And so that puts a Drupal menu item on this screen and makes that available, and it groups them all together. So it's an easy way to keep your queries nicely organized when you first log in. Scheduled queries, you can, like I mentioned, if you're doing database maintenance, you can set up queries, and then you can set them up to run on a schedule, and you can have them run each day at certain times. You can have them run weekly, monthly. I don't have any of those set up for today's example, but if there was maintenance, scheduled queries are available. ETL, I'm going to show you some ETL examples. ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. So it's the way that you can, between two databases, you can extract data, you can do any transformation on it that you might need. The examples I show doesn't really do transformation, but you'll see that I do extract certain portions. You don't have to extract everything. You can do data manipulation if needed, and then you can load that into a destination database. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. Connections is where you set up and maintain your database connections. So the SQL ICE database is my local Derby database that SQL ICE runs on, and then you'll see that I have a connection set up to my Drupal database. And so I'm going to show you, first of all, I'm going to show you in here, you have the, you name it, your username and password. You can see I've changed my password, but what I want to point out here, driver name and JDBC URL, the connection wizard that we have populates that for you based on what you enter in. So you won't be expected to type those in. What you will see when you do new connection, like if you were doing your Drupal connection, you would give it a name, and you would select MySQL from the drop-down box. And so the wizard knows what's needed to connect to a MySQL database. And so then it's going to prompt you on the next screen for your username and password. And then you just need to know your host, like where it's running. the ports to get to it, and then what is the name of your database. And then when you click Finish, it will populate, based on what you put in here, this information here on driver name and JDBC URL. So that's how you set up a connection. The Users tab is to, you can set up additional users. So you would be the admin for SQL ICE, and if you, say, wanted to give other people access to view your Drupal data, then you could give them a user ID and you could give them access to queries that you've written, and you could give them access, just view access instead of create or update or delete access. And so that's how you can control, you can give people access to data, and then you control what it is they can do with it. My account is simply your admin, the admin user that you have set up. So you just would be, if you needed to change your password, that's about all you would do there. And then the log out, that's pretty straightforward. And so this over here on the right, I'll just point out, welcome default admin. That lets you know always who are you logged in as at that time. So if you have, you know, are you logged in as your admin, or have you set up some different users that you log in as to do certain things. So you'll always know how you're logged in. Okay, and I'm going to get to, once I get to some of the queries, I'm going to show you some more of the user interface on how you set up queries and the ETLs. I'll get to those fields. So first of all, I'm going to start with some very basic queries, and then I'm going to move on to some more complex examples of what you can do to get at and see and filter your Drupal data. So I have 12 examples I'm going to run through. The first one here that's called users. That is simply, it's a list of all the users that have registered on our website. And this is our live data. Our business integration technology website is built on Drupal. And when, so we have people, like I mentioned, the people that register on our website to get access to additional options. This is a list of all, and this is all of the actual users that have registered with us. So this is I'm going to run it first to show you the result. And so this is, and this doesn't have a lot of formatting. I'm going to get to some more that do have formatting. So this is raw from the users table in Drupal, the users that have registered with us. So the user ID, name, I guess that's the encrypted password. I couldn't, thank you. I couldn't think of encrypted. The email address, and then these are, you know, different fields in that the users table uses: mode, sort, threshold, theme, signature format. I don't know about a lot of these, but you can see it's just got everything from the users table, and it just lists them all. So I want to show you that that's a simple query here, the web display query. There's a CSV and an XML, and I'll explain those in a later one why I have those set up. But to display the users is a very simple SQL statement: select star from users. So select everything from the users table. And so, yeah, when you run that, you get that result. So here I think would be a good time to explain a little bit about the fields and when you set up a new query. When you set up a new query, you give it a name, and so that's a free text field. The query URI is, that needs to be a valid text string that's valid for a URL, because that would be like, let's see, let me go ahead and run this again, and I want to show you that up here, Drupal users, that's why there's no spaces in there, because that becomes part of the URL. Data source, I'm going to tell it, this is my list of active connections. You saw earlier that I have 2 connections, and this query is hitting my Drupal database, so I'm telling it that I'm just making that selection. Active, that's just merely a check mark, so you can create queries and then you can inactivate them so people can't run them, and then you just reactivate them by simply checking that off. Query schedule, that would be how I mentioned earlier. If I had any scheduled queries, they would have shown up on that tab, and this shows those options I was telling you how you can set them up to run daily, weekly, monthly, as you were to need. New SQL, that would be where you write your SQL code, and these are the various types of outputs that you can get. We're doing, ours is a
web display.
Oh, yeah, sorry, web display. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't show you ones you already have. So I already have a web display one. That's the default one, I believe, because that's, and then you can do headers, footers. Some of these don't apply, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. We can talk about that offline. If you have questions, you can get in touch with me. Authorize, how I mentioned, you can give people access to run queries or access to do certain things. Redirect, JSONs. If you're going to do an email output, if you're going to do let's see, I'm going to go back to here because I'm going to show you some of the outputs, other outputs. You can do a CSV output, you can do an XML output.
But Laurie's done a general, this is Fred Downke from BIP. Laurie's done a general purpose webinar on using SQL ICE to cover some of the various types that you might want to reference. Today we're focusing on using it for Drupal.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
The other one is available both from our website and directly at YouTube.
Let's see, so link to existing
you can share
SQL. You can, that's right. This is all of the queries that exist in my version here that I'm running of. They're accessed to me, so I can link to those instead. So instead of having to, if you've written a basic one and then you want that to be part of a more complex one, then you can just link to that instead of rewriting.
One real useful thing for linking is you might write an authorized query that says, are these users in a particular user table on the target database that are allowed to do a particular function? And then you would reuse that authorized query in a wide variety of queries for those users.
Edit attributes. I touched on this at the very beginning. I have an attribute name. It's an application attribute named Drupal. That is it's grouping all of my Drupal queries together so that they show up on that screen, on that main screen. Did you have oh, sorry. Okay. Let's see. Let me get back here. And then parameters. This one does not have any parameters. Some of my queries coming up are going to have parameters, so I'm going to show you that when I get to one that has that example. So let's see. The next one I want to show you is, okay, so I showed you a list of all the Drupal users. Well, if I want to do some analysis of that user table, then something that might be useful to know is what are all the available fields that a user could enter in, because we have fields. We used to have certain required fields. Now it's a lot more open. But we had optional fields, mandatory required fields, and so in order to write queries, it's useful to know, well, what are all the fields in that table? So this query shows me what all of the fields are: first name, last name, city, state or province, country, company, etc., etc. We ask some questions, and you can see that they're categorized. Type 1 is personal, type 2 is business, 3 is interest, and they're simply in the order that we added them in, 1 through 16. And so the query that does that is the profile fields database is the name of the table that holds that information, and so it's just tell me everything that's in that. So you can see that if just knowing some basic SQL, you can get into some good information from your Drupal databases, your Drupal tables. So now let's say I want to know, I don't want to just get a list of all the cities. Or a list of all the users. City is an optional field, and so I want to see of all the users who entered a city, I'd like to get a list of those so that I could do sorts by that. But if they didn't enter a city, then I don't want to see them because that's not helpful for the analysis that I'm doing right now. So this is just a list of all my usernames, and if they entered a city, what is it? So I'm going to show you the SQL that does that. And so it's saying where the, let's see, where the, I'm sorry, where there's a value in city in the profile values table, and so it's doing a match on if there's a city name, then show me. If there's a city, if the city field has a value in it, then show me what the username is. Okay, and then this is kind of the same, a similar thing. I want to see the users that enter the city, but I also want to see their last name and not just their user ID, because they can put anything in the user ID, and sometimes it's some crazy made-up name, and that doesn't help me identify who they are. And you'll notice that this city, it looks like that shouldn't have been a match, but it looks like they put in a blank space or something like that. So it recorded a character in that field, but so they just kind of entered in a space to get when they were in that field instead of tabbing out of it. Okay, so I want to get to let's see. Drupal users include last name and city. That's similar to the last one, so I'm not going to go to a lot of detail on that one. So that's like whether they entered a city or not, it's showing both. So that's why it's got more hits than the last one. But the next ones I'm going to get to are some really neat ones. This one we find real useful. Today's hits. Let's say you want to know who hit your website today.
It's using the Drupal access log, but accessed through SQL ICE.
So you can see that.
You can shrink it a little with the Control minus.
Oh, sorry. So that we can see.
Go to webinar. It's too big.
Oh, it looks okay. Can you still see it? On my screen? I can see it. So I don't know if you can. Okay, so you can see the title of the web page that they hit, what that Drupal path is, the node, the host name, where they come from, if their user ID. So if they were a registered user, it would have recorded that. So the zeros are the anonymous users, either people that are not, they're just not logged in, whether they have an ID or not. If they were logged in, it would show their username. Timestamp is when they hit that page, and timer, I don't know how they count that, but it's, I think, how long that they were at that place. And so host name, you can look that up, and we've got some queries that are going to show you where we've connected to. I'll let Fred explain. Let's see, if the next one going to hit that, or will that be filtered hits? I think, yeah, when we get to the count, but with who is, I'll have him explain how we're showing that. Filtered hits. Oh, I didn't show the. I did not show the SQL on that. So you can see I did. I put the column headings on that one, and so instead of it just saying title and path, I said, well, I want it to be named web page title. I want it to be named Drupal path. This is a little bit of that HTML I mentioned that you can do. I made that column be a text area so that it wouldn't be really, really wide, and so it would fit nicely on the screen and make it easier to read. And then, like he mentioned, it's hitting the access log and the users table.
If you're interested in how we combine HTML into SQL ICE queries, you might want to go to the frequently asked questions FAQ in the forums. There's a detailed thing on how to create links and such, but we basically pass it right through, and you use SQL string arithmetic to create HTML enhancements.
Okay, so filtered hits. This is where I mentioned parameters earlier. And so when you have filters, you have parameters that you can select what it is that you want to see. So let's see. I'm going to look for SQL ICE, and I'm going to have, both of them be yesterday's date. So this is going to be people that came and hit any of the SQL ICE pages from yesterday. And so you can see I did some formatting on this one too, so it shows me where they went, what node that was. This is nice. This URL you can see that this one, they came in from, we have some Google ads running, and so you can see that this one came from a Google ad. This one came from, they started at the documentation page and went to the quick start page. And then some of that same information that we had before. And so now this next one I'm going to show you hits with who is. Oh, I need to show you how the parameters work. I apologize. Let me go back into the. So to get those selection options for the filters, you add parameters. And so I have some strings that I allowed you to select on. So I'm displaying name is username, host name is host name formatted nice, URL is URL, or fragment to let the user know they don't have to know the complete URL. So those are the names of the fields in the database that you are going to be able to search on, and then how you want that visible to the user. And then I've got my start date and my end date. So those are date generator, and there's a few other options. This username is used for authority, and Ajax is used for drop-down boxes to give, if you're giving people options of what they can select from instead of just an open field.
Let's show them how we use that in the query too.
Right. Let's see.
So all the red underlining on the page is because Laurie's spell checking this somehow.
Oh yeah, that's I think my browser.
But the general filtering mechanism down there in the where clause is where you say where a field is like, and here I'm putting in wildcards, or the field was wildcarded. So the host variable there of name is the default is an asterisk. That'll pass all. If you put anything other than an asterisk in there, it'll make sure that the username begins with that. The URL default is an asterisk, pass all. It will search for the URL anywhere in the string because they have a % on the front and the back end, which is the SQL wildcard for both, and so on. And then it's doing data arithmetic there for the timestamps. Drupal stores timestamps in a Unix time format as an integer. This converts it to a SQL date format so that it can compare it with dates. And we limited our results here to 100 because there's so many people come to our webpage every day.
And so I guess I didn't mention, because I'm used to doing that, when we do strings, we always put the default value of an asterisk in there for the user. Because if you do a blank, it doesn't do the return, but with the asterisk, you'll get back your anything. So instead of the user having to remember to put stars in where they don't want to specify anything, then you do that just to make it more user friendly. Okay, so now this who is, Drupal hits with who is. Let's see.
So I have a who is table that I've created that basically has all of the IP addresses for people who've hit our website, have been looked up in the Aaron who is database and recorded, including the range of IP addresses covered by that. And then I've characterized those who is records in that public Aaron database as to whether they are what I would call prospects, which are regular companies, whether they are government/educational institutions, or whether it was simply registered to an internet service provider. I'm currently only marketing in North America, so I screen out and have who is listings for the Asia Pacific, Latin America, African, and European sites. I'm rethinking that European one, and maybe we'll expand into the other areas at some later date.
So you get back a nice result, and you see that now instead of just getting this the IP, you know who that is, and then you can also see, was that a screened one? Was that an ISP? Or was it one of the like government education? We get a lot of hits on those, like Fred said. And so let's see, that's covering up my scroll bar. So let me show you the SQL on that. Let's see. So what? I don't remember what the name of your database is that we're.
The table is applied, but I have a view there called Access Hits Who Is.
Access Hits Who Is. That's your, okay.
That joins it. It's a fairly complicated arithmetic to take the host name and parse it out by the 4 pieces of the IP address and match it up. I can share that with anybody who's interested in it. Just send us an email, and I'll be happy to share how we did that. My Who Is data, of course, is based on people who hit my site, but we've been up for quite a while, and there's a lot of generic information in there, all of which is publicly available at whois.aaron.com.
Okay, so my next example is a hit count by Whois. So instead of just a list of all of them in no particular way to look at it in a in a summarized way, then we are doing a hit count on this one. And so again, we have the same parameters, and I'm just going to make this one true so we don't get back so many hits. It won't take it quite as long to run, but you'll see we're going to get, so from AT&T it was 13, Charter 5, et cetera, et cetera. So if you were doing like, your non-ISP ones, your, what do you call it, like the government and education ones that people interested in, then the ones you call leads, not prospects. Prospects, yeah.
And that was just so far today.
Okay, so, So this is, you've got your count as hits, and then we just want to see the company name, so we weren't wanting to get all of those fields back, just the company one. And then we've got our same filter commands there. And then let's see, this was a new one, filtered Whois, that Fred just did this one today. So this has a lot of additional filters, you get more detailed information than the other one. So let's say I want to know who has downloaded anything from our website. Let's see, I want to see the unknowns, and I want to see the education government ones because we have a lot of people interested in those, and I just want to see those for this month. Then I can see which of the downloads they've hit, so whether it was downloading SQL ICE or the main download page, who they were, when it was, and then you can see the refer again too, so you can see where did they come from. That one came from a Google ad. Let's see, that one also came from a Google ad. So you can kind of see, how are people finding out about you? Is it from an ad, or is it from maybe did a search, or did they start on the homepage because they went on from there?
The number 2 download at download.cnet.com, which is also a source of leads for us.
Okay, so my next one, I think I'm on, I'm on number 11. So search nodes we found this useful just a couple of days ago, where if you want to search your site for specific content, I had the need for that because I saw somebody was getting a not found error. And when I went to look, and I figured I had needed to create an alias, or maybe I had it not be relative or something like that, I wasn't finding how they did that. And so I wanted to be able to just easily search for all the nodes for that particular string and see how they got there. So this one has just one parameter, what it is you want to search for. So I want to, on this example, I want to show you where all on our BIP website do we reference the word workflow, so that I can make sure that I don't have any broken links or non-relative links or anything like that where they might get an error. And so this is just a list of, you can see node ID, version ID, that's NID and VID. They all seem to be exactly the same. That's a Drupal thing, so I don't know what the difference between those are. That would be a Drupal question. User ID, I think that's who it was that created that page, the name of the page. This is the raw HTML of that page, so you'd find that string in there. The teaser is the short, what's the word I'm looking for, that you see, the preview. And then timestamp, is that one that was created? I guess not one that was created. I guess it was last modified, maybe? Yeah. And then input format is that where you say whether it's full HTML or what the other option is. That's a radio button when you're creating a page. And so those are not all of the fields available in that. Let me show you the query on this. You can see that we've just selected some of the fields. So we've selected these fields from that table, from the node revisions table. And you can see we have a couple more text areas in there to make those long ones, not be something that you can easily see on one screen and not have to be scrolling back and forth. And then we did shorten one of them, where the body, on some of them can get really long and you don't need to see the whole thing. So, so that's what that SQL looks like. And then now I get to a couple of those ETL examples where you're like connecting two databases. You're getting data from one and again putting it into another. And so the first example, like I have a spreadsheet. Let's see, I don't have it open. I have a spreadsheet of vehicle weights. Let me pull open the spreadsheet real quick. I want to show you. Let's see. So I just have the simple CSV of it's car information, make, model, what is the weight of that car, and I want to get that into a database from a CSV. Because let's say an application I see of this is you can get data from somewhere as a CSV and now you want to upload it. Maybe you want to upload it into Drupal, or maybe you have gotten it from Drupal and you're going to upload it somewhere else. But in this example, I've got a CSV. The first step of that, so what we're going to do, you create a local table, and then you're going to populate. I'm going to show you populating that from the CSV, and then I'm going to show you what that local, the populated database looks like. So step one is create that local, and so this is not a Drupal database. This is going to be local. This is going to be a Derby. This is going to be created in Derby because it's local. So when I run that, it's just going to say success. So, well, what is it that I just did? All I did was I told it to create a table. I named it vehicle weights. Let's see.
Generated key.
Yeah, generated key, and then I've got my three fields, my make, model, and weight, and then it's going to have a timestamp. So all of them are going to get, by default, the current timestamp when I create it, and then changes will be recorded from then on. And then okay, so I've got that just created my local database, and that's your place for where you're going to upload the data. So now I'm going to run this ETL. I have here called load vehicle weights from CSV. And so when I click upload, I'm going to browse for that. Where do I have that CSV file? So I think it's down here at the bottom. Yeah, here we go. So I want to upload that. And you see it's going to automatically. And it says 932 records were created. All of them were successful. So let me show you, yes, that actually was successful, and then I'm going to show you the query behind it. So this is my, let's see, view that vehicle weights table. So this is that local copy of that vehicle weights table, and you can see there's my ID field, my make, model, and weight from the spreadsheet, and then it put the time when it created that row in the updated field. So I just want to show you real quick that on this one, this isn't the interesting one, but it's my SQL ICE database. It's running locally, and it's literally just select star from vehicle weights. That is all the records in vehicle weights. So let me show you.
Show them the insert.
Yeah, so the insert query is this one that I had named with ETL, insert vehicle weights. What does this look like? How did we do that? So let's see. Do I want to show them on this one? So I had, I mentioned this earlier, and well, no, that was something else. Never mind. So you can see insert into vehicle weights. That's the name of the table I just created. Make, model, and weight, and the values. Let's see.
Host variables.
Yeah, the host variables for those fields. And so you can see that's not a very complicated SQL needed to execute that. And then creating the ETL, which joining those two, let's see, that was a CSV ETL. So when you click that, let's see, there's I'm going to be importing, so there's not a source one because it's a spreadsheet. It's not, the source is not a query. But my destination query is one of the two that have CSVs associated with them. And so that's the one that I wanted. I selected that. I gave it a name. I'm not going to save this now because I already have that. But then that's how that is how simple it is to create the ETL. You create the query, and then you connect, and then you create the ETL that points to that query, and it's pretty simple. And then this is a neat one. My last example. Let's say you've got data in your Drupal database, and you need to get it out of there. You want to create what my example is create a local copy of your Drupal users, and so that you can access it, so that you could maybe import it into some local tool that you use for whatever reason. You need to get whatever your data is. I'm using users, and you need to get it out of there. So same step one as before. I need to create a local users table. So you're going to see that that's that same. Well, this one, that's right. I mentioned this. That users table I showed you at the beginning, it's got a lot of stuff in it. I didn't necessarily need all of those fields, so I told it when it created this table, these are the fields that I want to have in my local one. I don't need some of those, and so it.
This is where the transform part comes into ETL, which is that you don't need to have just exact copies of tables, and it's not just a CSV import or export, because your destination table can be different from your source table. It can include a subset of the data in terms of subset of columns. It can include a subset of rows, depending upon your select where clause. And it can also include summarized data or transform data. So you might be doing counts of sales by region and putting it into a data mart or a data warehouse, or you may be sub-selecting things or creating expressions. Or changing from a parts ID in the customer's data system to a parts ID in your internal data system by referencing two tables, so doing a table lookup. Okay, so
there's
a whole section on ETL in the FAQ as well that talks about how ETL is best handled with SQL ICE.
And so then my step two, again, is actually an ETL step. So I click the ETL tab and get to let's see, this one here, the pull push. So my source query is my users table, and my destination query is my local one. So when I click pull push, the result where it's we didn't make a real pretty nicely formatted view for this result, because we figure a lot of use for this is going to be system to system type use and not manual user interface for this. But you can see that it extracted the data and it pulled it in, and I'm going to show you that. Let me go back here, and I have my last query example here is viewing that local Drupal users that I created. And so this shows, and you can see it only got those fields that I wanted, but it is my Drupal users. So this looks very similar to what I showed you before, but all I wanted was their name, their email, and these other fields. And so I want to show you this ETL, this local load users. The output type on this one is XML, which when you're doing new SQL, how I showed you, you have different options here. The XML is not showing up because I already have one of those. But let me show you. This is similar to that other one. You can see it's not a role. It's not one of those most complex ones where it's saying insert into Drupal users, and it shows you the fields that we want and then the host name.
So this is using essentially, really, you can consider it a REST web service to retrieve the users from one SQL ICE query, and a REST web service to insert the users into another one across databases, and in this case, actually across data centers.
Okay, so that's all that completes the examples that I had showing how you can get to your Drupal data. You can display things. You can get data out. You can get data in. You can make copies, and there's a whole lot more you can do. If you were wanting, you can get local copies of things, and you can change data, and then you can load Drupal tables from that. Let's see, do we have, oh, go ahead.
Just wanted to say that a couple of the features that have been shown here, especially in the ETL portion, that was reworked for SQL ICE version 1.1.2 to make it easier to have ETLs that were strictly upload and download rather than ETLs that go between two systems. That would, if you'd like to have your system, your SQL ICE work just like the way you saw it today, you will need to go to the website and download version 1.1.2. And later today, we're going to take these queries, put them into a zip file, and put that on, as well as a link to the recorded YouTube video of this presentation on a SQL ICE for Drupal page, and we will be sending you an email link to that page.
So are there any questions from the audience? I believe I have everyone unmuted in case, I believe I have everyone unmuted, perhaps I don't. There's also a question, there's a way that you can post questions through the, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that positive feedback. We are available for follow-on questions after you've had a chance to kind of digest this and think about it. You can, from our website, you've got our phone number. I think that those of you that have registered have email from me now, or you can always post things to the group, and I monitor that. I get those postings, so feel free to share this with, if you have colleagues that are Drupal users or, other members of the group, please feel free to share this, refer us. We're open to hearing feedback from you, because there's always, the more people that use SQL ICE, the more ways we uncover it can be used. And like I said, it's a very powerful tool. It can do a lot of things for you, and this is just touches on, one way that you can use SQL ICE. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you attending our presentation today, and have a great day. Thank you.